Welcome to the Global Education Station Presents. I'm Annette Levesque, your host, education and technology strategist, and author of eLearning Gold, the ultimate guide for leaders. In each episode, we explore innovative ideas and best practices in education, connecting with directors, CEOs, authors, and thought leaders. Together, we'll share stories and insights to inspire and engage learners globally. Today, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Pino Buffone, an accomplished educator with a career spanning 3 decades. Pino began his teaching career in '94 with the Western Quebec School Board and held various leadership roles in the Ottawa-Carleton District School Board and Renfrew County District School Board. He currently serves as the Director of Education at Ottawa-Carleton District School Board and is actively involved and serves with several educational committees and organizations, including the Council of Ontario Directors of Education, the Ontario Ministry of Education's Right to Read Working Group, School Mental Health Ontario, and the Education Quality and Accountability Office. Welcome, Pino.
Thanks so much for having me, Annette. Great to be with you.
Can you start us off by just sharing maybe a brief overview of how did you end up in the role? How did you end up in education, and how did you end up in the role you're in today?
Sure, Annette. First of all, it's an honor to return to the Ottawa-Carleton District School Board this past August. It's coming to the end of my first year. Hard to believe how quickly time flies. But I was a student in Ottawa-Carleton and really had my whole educational journey as a student, 14 plus years in the Ottawa-Carleton District School Board, and then a member of staff in various positions for a little over 19 years before going to Renfrew County as a director of education and now returning this past August. So it's been a wonderful journey. I mean, my learner journey was filled with terrific experiences and opportunities that staff provided me with as teachers and educators and administrators along the way. So I'm very grateful for that. And then as a member of staff, I had a wonderful opportunity to try different positions at the elementary and secondary level in various contexts: teacher, vice principal, principal. I was assistant principal with central responsibilities, and then a supervisory officer, and then, of course, now back as director of education. So very grateful, very privileged for the opportunity that I've had, both as a learner journey as a student and a leadership journey as an educator.
That's amazing. And is there one particular highlight in your journey or your career that stands out that you'd like to share?
You know, for me, I think it's interesting because before I came into education, I was involved in a number of other initiatives. I have a backdrop in sciences, was working for Health Canada at the time around a project, a multi-country project. This was just after graduating from my undergraduate degree. Before going into Teachers College, I was working on a multi-country project around DNA amplification, how to really regrow DNA, looking at various conditions, the medium that you're reculturing the DNA in, the temperature, other factors. So I was really involved in the sciences through Health Canada at the time as my employment. And also was interested in the foreign services, now global affairs, Canada. And right at about the time where I had to make a decision, I was the last entry into Teachers College at McGill University, quite literally the last day of August. And in my heart of hearts, realized I wanted to become an educator, despite those other great opportunities, be it in the health sciences or in diplomacy, and went the educator route again as the final entry. I didn't get in right away to the universities I had applied to, and I've never really looked back. It's been just a terrific experience. I've been the beneficiary of a really strong foundation in learning. Less so education from my parents' perspective. My parents are immigrants. They're illiterate. They don't read or write, but they always had a really strong foundation around learning, and that's been instilled in me since I was young, and has carried me a long way in the role right now. So really appreciate the opportunities I've been given. I've been very blessed, very fortunate to have those opportunities and to have a wonderful journey in education so far.
DNA. So did you end up teaching science in your teaching? Because DNA is pretty cool.
It is very cool. I worked for, at the time, in the Ottawa area. It's now a lab center for disease control that's located in Winnipeg, Manitoba. But at the time, it was located in the Ottawa area, and had worked on various elements of reculturing DNA off of segments or fragments of species. Really interesting project on how you might go about amplifying DNA and regrowing various elements of it. Fascinating project. That was just something I was getting into at Health Canada during my time there. I'd worked there as a summer student, so had started into a master's level multi-country project that way. While I was thinking about what I was going to do or what I wanted to do with my life in that way, education was one of them, but lots of interest in healthcare, of course. And then, as I mentioned, I'd always had a fascination with diplomacy and foreign service and just interaction amongst countries and how we learn to get along on the globe.
Hmm. That's fascinating. And then, so in your role as director at OCDSB, just off the top of your head, not to catch you, but what's the size right now? Like, what's the number of teacher students that you have oversight for?
Sure, about 78,000 students, about
Wow.
over 150 schools, staff at about 15,000 in total, including all of our support staff, in addition to, of course, teaching positions, that kind of thing, but additional support staff, educational assistants, and other. We're about an organization of 15,000 or so employees.
Wow. And as you've moved through your career, so there's been, I think of even in my own career, how much change there's been in technology. Like I remember in my first teaching gig, it was actually with OCTSB
Wonderful,
way back when. I think it was like 2000, 1999, 2000.
terrific.
And I remember back then, it was more teachers were retiring. There was a high retirement population. And I think I had my first laptop in teachers college. I was at Ottawa U. And if you could do an email attachment, you were the new tech rep for your school. Like that's the way it went back then. Like that's where we were starting from. And I think of how many things have changed. What's that been like for you with 3 decades, in an educational career? How have you managed the onslaught of new technologies that keep coming?
I think and that it's been rejuvenating. It's been exciting. Having a growth mindset to emerging technologies, whatever they might be. And I'm a lot like you. I started teaching in an era when you didn't actually have email, and so when that was introduced at a systemic level, and we all received an email, and we were starting to converse in that manner. This is dating me quite a bit, but it was just an incredible opportunity. And so I feel the same now with the kind of emerging technologies. When you think about artificial intelligence and the impact that will have on us moving forward, I think, yes, there's always a bit of trepidation. You're managing large scale change in a sense of how you adapt to new technologies, but very exciting application. And for me, one of the really inspiring pieces is how much into the future, as has been the case in the past, that those technologies help students and staff in various capacities where they might be facing a disability or a challenge, an accommodation or a modification. When you think of the technologies moving forward, that's going to level those playing fields more and more and more over time. And that's exciting to think through.
Absolutely. So I'm not sure of the role of the board versus, I guess, principals in schools for teachers that are looking to stay connected and keep up with those technologies. What's the best, what supports are available to them, I guess, through the board or the school to try to help them, especially in this time as you raise the AI. The schools I talk to seem to be either very yay, yes, we're going to try it out and embrace it, or completely we don't want it, or, and there's not much in between in the middle right now. So how, as a leader in the board, I guess, what's the tone of this, and how do teachers get some support for this, educators out there?
Sure. We've got, from a district perspective, we've got a working group that's starting to map out essentially a framework for artificial intelligence, taking into consideration not only the utilization of various platforms, but the digital etiquette that goes along with use of technology. Again, we see this as a huge opportunity, and noting some cautions. And I think that's something through professional learning with with staff, and then experiential learning with our students. We'll look to manage moving forward. With respect to staff members, whether they're seasoned or new to the profession, I think there's an opportunity to engage in professional learning opportunities that will help them try some things on in their classrooms. As you've said, some are very attuned to this. It's just part of their day-to-day functioning. Others might be a little less comfortable with various platforms. I think just providing our staff, our talented, caring and committed staff, the opportunity to try some things and then to map them into this framework as we move forward will be very, very beneficial. And that the artificial intelligence and the emerging technologies don't only apply in the teaching and learning environments in our classrooms per se. They apply to how we communicate forward now, our communications department, our human resources, and how we can utilize some of that technology to help the efficiency and effectiveness of the organization. So it's much more than just the classroom environment, although that's our primary focus. It's actually how we function as an organization that will look to lead into emerging technologies as they exist right now and the ones we don't know of yet.
Exactly. So many of the educators I talk to about this, and it's actually kind of been a theme, I think, even from in infancy in my career. Actually, just before that first teaching job at OCDSB, I was working with 𝗃𝗄𝗃, and one of my roles, they were recruiting new teachers in Teachers College, and one of my roles was to go around to schools and help teachers integrate technology into the classroom, and it was super fun. And one of the things I noted, and that hasn't really changed in my career in working with teachers, is that many, when a new technology comes out, and I'm seeing this a lot with AI, they feel a little bit vulnerable and they might want to try it, but they don't always want it to be known what they don't know or say what they don't know. And they're sometimes hesitant to ask, their department heads or principals for some additional professional development support or access to courses or workshops and training. What's a good approach for teachers that are feeling like maybe they'd like to access that? Are they better to send a note to the board, to you, to the principals? What's the best way to do that?
I think it's a really great point, Annette. And then we've got to create sort of places and spaces where staff feel comfortable trying it out before they feel they're on in front of their students, so to speak, in lessons or in learning opportunities. One of the great areas that I would suggest for our staff, we've got some technology-enabled learning contacts. They're really instructional coaches in the area of technology. And in our business and learning technologies department, we've got a series of, again, dedicated and diligent educators who can help the rest of our staff, our teaching staff, or our educators more broadly in new platforms to try, perhaps new strategies that integrate technology to a greater extent into their craft. Those are wonderful individuals who can very, very humbly and very, very safely allow you to try some things, get some feedback. They're great at giving suggestions and can also help with the nature of the platform, just giving an orientation. So I think there's lots of opportunities, not only with the administration of the school on site, some centrally driven professional learning opportunities, but our coaches in the area of technology are wonderful individuals who help that forward. And as an example of that, as I started to get used to ChatGPT. I wasn't an early adopter of it in that way, and I just had one of our members of our business and learning technologies team take me through it and just give me a sense of, okay, here's how you can use it. Here are some ways to help you with some message you're looking to develop. And it's been a really, really interesting journey for me as one example, but utilization of the good staff in those departments are one way to get to that.
What's your favorite thing you've done with ChatGPT so far, or that it's given you that you went, whoa?
Interestingly, I'm always cautious, in part because I like crafting my own messages. So sometimes when I'll put something in, I take it and then adapt it to my own language, and that helps me partly because I'm not good at reading script. I'm better just speaking for an audience. It's more authentic for me. So what I've used it for predominantly is actually shortening a message. When I'm looking something up and I really want to pare this down, I find it's a great tool to take the essence of the message. And then even if I bulk it back up a little bit with my own examples or context that's more personalized. It does a great job of taking something that might be, 6 pages in length or complex and lengthy, and really trimming it down to the essence of it. So that's one of the utilizations for me, especially when I know I've only got three minutes to reach this audience. Got to make it an impactful 3 minutes.
You're absolutely right. And people don't realize it's actually harder to pare down, as you said, and go shorter than to elaborate. I mean, I'm a writer, so I can write and write, and then I'll look at something and say, no, no, okay, I can't send that. That's way too long, and it's really great to actually, when I did my book, they had summaries. This is 250 words. Here's a bio. Here's a bio that's 150 words. So it's great if you have your writing and you just want it shaped differently. I find it's really great too for brainstorming. I've actually learned some new vocabulary, which you would think, at this phase in the career, do you know that you're just stuck on that word? You've got your writing, you're like, this is not flowing correctly. And then you put it into it and it pumps out a word that you would maybe not really use. And I think, oh yeah, that's a really great fit, and I was thinking on that the other day. I was thinking, as much as we worry about the academic fraud and the academic dishonesty, which we'll go to, the other side of the coin is that it can actually teach, it can enhance your writing, and you learn from that if you see things several times, and then maybe you'll start enhancing your own vocabulary or increasing it.
Absolutely. It really is a tool that can be used. In some ways, I see it as my own editor in-house, right? In my own seat, my own desk area, this tool can be an editor to help me shape a message moving forward. And then, as you've said, you can adapt it. I adapt it. Sometimes what comes back my way, I think, no, not quite the message I want to share. Here's the parts I'll add into. So it's a good critical thinking partner and collaborative friend. And honestly, if the nature of our tasks are rich enough, we get past or we break through the ceiling of this is going to be plagiarism, or this is going to be, not someone's original ideas. And so I think it brings us back, like we have in so many other times as educators, to making sure that the kinds of tasks we put on the desk in the interplay between the student, the educator, and the task at hand, if that's rich enough, open-ended enough, with multiple entry points, this truly becomes a tool as opposed to hitting a button to get an answer to a simple question.
Exactly. And I think what a lot of the schools and boards that I've spoken to are in the throes of maybe now is also trying to identify what are the foundational skill sets, because we've always had tools, right? I remember, I'm going to date myself when I say, but I remember when the internet was launching, becoming popular, and we were all in arms thinking, what's going to happen when we don't go to the card cafe to look up our book in university, right? And, as long as we see it as a tool, I mean, being a science person, you have those sophisticated, now I didn't take these sophisticated science classes to speak on this, but the sophisticated calculators, right? Well, in school, you were learning the skill sets still. You still needed the foundational skill sets, so you would know yourself how to multiply, how to add. And the calculator is a tool that'll do that a lot faster for you when you're processing data. But I kind of see AI along those right now in its current state, hopefully along those lines, that, perhaps asking that question, what foundational skill sets do we want to make sure we're teaching, like writing and the calculations without AI? And then how can we use it as a tool to do super cool things with DNA?
Absolutely. I think you're spot on. And the calculator is a great example. So is the written book, the print media. The calculator, when that was introduced, we had essentially the same argument. This tool is going to take away from the thinking. And what we've learned over time is it's actually enhanced the kind of tasks that we have students do, and step away from some of the rote or the lower level pieces that the tool can take care of, to make sure we're focusing on the higher level aspects of skills or characteristics we're looking to develop, qualities we want to develop in our students, which bring, to my mind, us back to critical thinking and problem solving as a key one, collaboration and communication, creativity, and the complement to that being innovation, right? You might have an idea, but are you able to action it, which brings value to me, which is the innovative part of something. It's not just a really interesting idea and concept, can you actually action what you're looking to put into play and innovate it in some manner? So I think those key skills are essential. And the other one I would add to those three or four: critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and creativity. I would add the notion of really triangulation of data, right? With the increasing integration of technologies, or the sort of transformation that technologies bring to us, are we able, with more data on hand at our fingertips, are we able to sort through multiple pieces of data to say, actually, the real most accurate picture or story here lies in a combination of these pieces that we sort through as we think critically through any given topic, to do away with misinformation and ensure we've got the right information in front of us to make a decision or act in some manner. So I think there's a series of core skills there that have been shared in various capacities, global competencies, whatever you would like to call it. But there are skills that we can use the technology to leverage further in teaching and learning environments.
You're absolutely right. And misinformation is huge right now for students, because it's no longer, I still visit schools, in other countries that have standardized tests, and you see things like schools or teachers teaching to the test, and it's a lot of content learning. It's a lot of that old style, memorization, rote learning. And now the information's all there. There's so much out there, but there's so much misinformation, as you just said, and that's not correct. And I think that that's a key skill for students and educators, is how do we teach students how to validate the information they're receiving and those sources. And I actually, Pino, got burnt by ChatGPT. I'll share with you. I have a book club that I'm part of, and I had to organize the questions for it. And ChatGPT is normally fabulous to take content and organize questions. And I guess my first heads up should have been when I put in, it was the Covenant of Water, and I put the book into it. And I said, I'd like some suggestions for book club questions for the Covenant of Water. I hadn't even finished the book yet. I was on a mission. It's 20 hours. This is a significant book. And anyway, it said to me that this author didn't write that book. It didn't exist. And I thought, I think I have that correct. So I went and looked again. And then it generated the questions. And actually, 3 of the questions were completely wrong, like wrong characters, wrong information. And so that, I find it's very, if you have the information you want and you want ChatGPT to form it for you or shave it down, as you said, it works really well. But for research, caution, caution, caution.
And that's one of the limitations, I think, and maybe this will improve over time, but a large-scale language model of that nature is going to have some limitations to it. And I think it's still early days for the utilization of those kinds of large language models in that way. So I think this will get refined and better over time. But you raise a great example that you've just got to be still giving it critical thought and an eye to whatever it is you're entering as input or pulling out as output, in a sense, and making sure you've still got that critical eye to it.
It's not as, I think there's a big fear out there that we're going to put a prompt in and then you have an instant paper, an instant essay. And it's really, at this current time, it doesn't really have those capabilities. It sounds very AI when it writes. And as you said, it's a data set, right? It's a large language model. So it's just kind of filling in the blanks. And it's really not capable of critical thinking. It's not capable of emotional intelligence. There's a lot of things. And it's pretty lazy, too. I asked it to gather some statistics from different websites on education. And it kept telling me, well, you can go to these links and get the database yourself. So how are you feeling, maybe taking it in another direction? What's the feeling around academic dishonesty or academic fraud right now with the boards? How are we dealing with this coming year?
I think there's some legitimate concerns on the part of staff in that way when they think of the utilization of these technologies and how easy it might be, as you've said, to be able to get an answer, putting in a prompt. I think it brings us back to a couple of pieces. One, what are the key skills and qualities, characteristics, knowledge base that we're looking to develop in our students, and making sure we shape rich, engaging tasks around that. And that, first and foremost, to me, fundamentally will help avoid some of the concerns there'll be instantaneous academic dishonesty. And I think our staff are doing a great job in preparing themselves and preparing our students with those prompts to say, we're going to explore a certain topic. Really want you to look at a variety of sources of data, utilize a large language model to get some input, but then shape it yourself for a presentation you might be giving, a report you might be providing for an assignment, so that it's a utilization of the tool and not a reliance on the tool. And I think there's a huge difference between those two. And that, I think, thanks to the efforts of our staff, is helping us sort our way through that. And I have no doubt we'll run into some instances where it didn't work out or we've got some concerns. We'll work through that with our students, and we'll work through it ourselves as professionals to make sure we set the conditions as respectfully and sensibly as we can to ensure we utilize these tools and not disengage them for some superficial reasons that we think we can handle another way. But I'm really inspired by the kind of conversations we're having. As I mentioned, we've got a working group that's getting started on a framework for artificial intelligence that's going to build actually in a suite of frameworks we're bringing forward around other areas, how we're approaching literacy, and we rejuvenate that every so often in our system, how we're approaching numeracy. Math continues to be probably the subject area of greatest concern. So we're going to have a suite of frameworks that will work together for our approach to teaching and learning as an organization. And that's in my first year back to the district. That's one of the things that I've noticed, is that we need to return to a system-wide approach to some of the key core skills or global competencies for our system, for the benefit of our students, and also for the synergy it creates among staff to work together towards that approach and how we best deliver teaching and learning to our students.
I think you're absolutely right. And, it's automating what automated systems can do really well. They're great for self-assessment quizzes. They're great for, it's great to provide instant feedback on something for learners. But I remember starting in virtual learning in the early days. This was a huge concern, is how do you know that the learner at the other end of an online course is the one actually completing the work? And what we ultimately discovered over 15, 20 years is that, students who engaged in the academic dishonesty, ultimately they did it on it usually happened on multiple levels. It wasn't just one point of contact, or it happened one time. And we were able to start to framework kind of a picture of what that looked like, within the data. And also, oddly enough, in our virtual learning environment, we had to personalize learning a little bit more, in the sense that if you've written this paper, you should be able to have a conversation with me about it, or keeping track of your research notes along the way. So, accessing different journaling and different tactics with students that, there's certain things that can be supremely automated with ChatGPT and the AI. But since it's doing all of that, what can we do in a more personal way, I guess, with students to ensure that they are the one that's engaging in the learning and the paper? Because, academic dishonesty is not new, right? We've had papers come in that look like mom and dad wrote it, or it's not a new feat.
I agree. I think, in a way, the product of an academically dishonest incident or scenario is really a byproduct of things happening earlier. One of the real signals to me is engagement. If you've got disengagement along the way, your chances of something related to academic dishonesty really grow significantly as you move through a learning module, course, study, whatever it might be. So I think there's lots of signals in advance of academic dishonesty that our educators are doing a refined job, and a wonderful job at picking up earlier. The kind of proactive approach to keep students engaged is much greater than it may have been in a more traditional teaching and learning context. And so many of those signals are revealed much earlier, which prevent getting to a point where you've got something that's really authentic academic dishonesty in a sense, so that our staff are really attuned to that, and crediting our provincial government, the kind of initiatives in student success like the recovery of credits, the kind of rescuing that happens of some credits with students, all very, very beneficial strategies to keep learners engaged with the learning, moving along in the knowledge or skills that they need to develop, so that we minimize the number of opportunities of that kind of thing from.
Absolutely. I think another interesting point on it that we encountered as well was that academic oath of honor. I remember when that was first introduced in our schools or early days and thinking, this is not going to work. We saw Harvard studies that said, this can help to reduce academic dishonesty, because when we did tend to see it in virtual learning, again, it tended to happen on multiple fronts. And we introduced that academic oath of honor, and it really reduced incidences of academic fraud. Like, we had students together. The first component of it was, of course, and I think teachers are going to be facing this now in schools, is being really clear on what constitutes academic dishonesty, especially when we're looking at AI. So, in this particular assignment, what's a green light? What's it okay to use it for? And what's it not okay to use it for? And we saw that students coming in from different countries had completely different perceptions based on their prior learning as to what constituted academic dishonesty. But then having them sign the oath that clearly outlined, we're a school of academic integrity, and this is what it means to be, part of our collaborative peer group. We also had them sign it again right before their final exam, which was written live. That really helped, because that was a key point of, I can imagine if you had notes or what, and you have to sign this right before your final exam, that, if you use anything you're not supposed to, and especially when you're looking at internet and online tests and, internet connections, that you're going to get a 0. Literally, the instances of academic fraud dropped like more than 50%. It was unbelievable.
Absolutely. I think, the notion of a social contract in one form or another with students, be it academic honesty, but also other areas, I think, moving forward, things like the utilization of personal handheld devices or not in the classroom, vaping, other things, that notion of a social contract for the greater good of the place and space they're stepping into to genuinely learn, very valuable. The other one I would add to that is the co-construction of some of the criteria to that, right? So if we're going to say we're going to use some of these emerging technologies, artificial intelligence as an example, how do we construct together in the classroom, as you said, that the green lights and the red light, the stop, you can't use it for this. I think that's really helpful to engage students in that journey we're all on with emerging technologies. And the last one I would say is, and we've mentioned this here, is the nature of our assessment and evaluation. What is it at the end as a conversation, an observation, a product that we would like to see from our students? Does it always need to be a written test? Could it be an oral interview? And I think we've done a great job expanding that array so that if students are engaged along the way, know the material that they're covering in content, but also the skills that we're developing, much less likely they'd be apt to be academically dishonest. I think if those things are on track, those students will realize, I got this. I can handle the task that's being asked for me, even in an evaluation setting.
You're absolutely right. That's fabulous. As a last and final question for you, so I would say, looking forward into the 2024-2025 school year, what are some goals or aspirations you have for your school board?
Sure. I think a couple from my perspective. Right now, we're engaged in a program review at the elementary level, and this is based on a vision exercise. When I started here in Ottawa-Carleton last summer, I did a series of one-on-one interviews with members of the Board of Trustees and members of the senior team, and had read the feedback on the most recent renewed strategic plan that was just put into place before I returned in the spring of 2023, and I joined in the summer of 2023. One of the things that was mentioned as a concern was equity of access and quality of programming that we had across the district. And so this vision exercise is really about reviewing the programs and services we offer. There's 4 chapters to that vision. Early years in childcare as really the front end, and on the other end of the bookcases here is adult and continuing education. And then the two stages in the middle are elementary education and secondary education, of course. And we've started at elementary because it's the area where we think we have the greatest ineffectiveness and inefficiency. And really, as an aspiration for the organization, we're in the midst of that program review. We started in the spring of this year in April. We'll take that through right to the end of the calendar year in terms of consulting with our organizational community, students, parents, guardians, staff, et cetera, community members. Really have a lot of aspiration that we'll get to enhancing the equity of access and opportunity for our students, but even more importantly, the equity of lived experience and outcomes ultimately for our students. I'm very excited about that work. It's engaging. It's a large-scale change management project, no doubt, but so far I've been really inspired by the very thoughtful input we've received so far, and we'll head into the fall season going back out to our organizational family, our communities, with whatever program models, changes that we may or may not put into place to, again, shape the programs and services of the future for the next generation of our learners. Really exciting work for me as a director and for our organization, and I'm really inspired because the feedback we've gotten so far, there's always a little trepidation with change, but people are really excited. They're all saying, we've needed to do this kind of a review, and we haven't done it in a number of years. I became a superintendent here in Ottawa-Carleton in the spring of 2010, almost 15 years ago. And my first senior leadership meeting, I stepped into the room for the first time at the senior table, and we were talking about this. This was one of the topics that day by chance, and 15 years later, we're actioning it. And it's really amazing how quickly time can fly, especially with large, complex change. A lot of time can pass before you dig into making a change of any sort. So very excited 15 years later to have the pleasure and privilege of leading really that change management project. So I would say the vision exercise for me is a key aspect of the work ahead over the next year for our district. And I think it's going to be a very fruitful exercise and add value to ultimately our students, our staff, and our school communities.
That's wonderful. Why is it felt that you'd mentioned the elementary system has more inefficiencies in it? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. 2 parts. One is, I think the province in general has realized, and you'll see this at the secondary level in the de-streaming that's happened in grade 9 and in some districts like ours, also grade 10. Before you get to the senior years at the secondary level, we've de-streamed a number of courses. So what used to be applied in academic courses have now been merged. It's a wider array of really readiness levels of our students in classrooms, and our staff are doing an amazing job at handling that greater differentiation. But the reason that the province de-streamed applied in academic classes in grade 9 in particular a few years ago were the data trends that we have that really indicated a number of our most marginalized and underserved students were the learning trajectories they were experiencing were not as optimal as they could be, and a definite distinct difference between those students in that programming and applied versus students who were in the academic pathway. And so the notion of de-streaming was really to get at the equity issues, especially from our most marginalized students and our most underserved. We have at the elementary level a number of streams happening in the same essence, not maliciously or intentionally, but it's clear that with too many offerings at the elementary level, we've got that same kind of streaming going on. And so we're looking to get at that, to try and ensure greater equity of access, again, especially taking into consideration our most marginalized and underserved populations where the systemic barriers are greater to overcome. The other piece, beyond the de-streaming at the provincial level, at the secondary level, at the elementary level, to complement the kind of work we're doing, has been the Right to Read report from the Ontario Human Rights Commission that's really indicating that there's a pocket of students for which we're clearly not serving their needs and need to really continue to strive to work at that. And that's part of this initiative at the elementary level. So exciting work ahead, all in the right venue and the right spirit of getting to some of the needs we have while we continue to serve the students for whom the system is working.
That's amazing. Okay, I have one more final question. I know I said it was a fun. What is your personally favorite tech tool yourself that you use daily and love that you would share with other educators?
So for me, I do a lot of presentations. I get truly the pleasure of speaking to a lot of groups in our system. We're big, we're complex, we have a lot of committee groups. And so I do a lot of presentations, and I utilize the presentation less for the audience, but more to keep me on track. So a few key points that I have on a platform that when I'm speaking, just helps me stay, not get off track, not get taken off on a tangent. And so I utilize tools like 𝗪𝗲, Canva, ChatGPT. I'm just getting into more and more now. So I use a variety of tools. They're not new by any means, but they're really helpful to me while I can still stay in the moment of the in-person piece, but rely on pieces of technology that help me. So in a personal sense, on a professional sense as well, using tools like Power BI and other platforms to analyze data, to interpret data, have been really helpful. Thought Exchange has been a great tool that we've utilized as a district to collect information. So lots of great tools out there that we make use of, both in the context of working professionally for the district, but also personally in the kinds of presentations or engagement that I do myself as part of the role.
Those are awesome recommendations. And actually, I have not checked out. I looked at 𝗪𝗲 early on, but I haven't looked at it recently. So I'm definitely going to, you're liking it?
Yeah, I'm liking it. I don't always use it, but it's great because it lets me pop into various resources, especially if I want to cover a lot of ground quickly and give a visual to it. So it's been great.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Pino, for coming to speak with us for today and kicking off our video set for educators. And I really look forward to following your career and following your progress at Ottawa-Carleton District School Board.
Thank you so much, Annette. And I'm looking forward to following you too, as well, in that same context of the journey ahead. It's been a pleasure to be with you.
Excellent.